And we're live. My name is Michael Lynn, and this is the MongoDB Podcast Live edition, coming to you live from just outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We've got a great show for you planned for today. We've got a MongoDB Community Champion joining us, Sani Yusuf. He's going to talk to us about the MongoDB Champions program. He's going to talk to us about something very cool that he's building to revolutionize gym management. He shares something in common with myself. We are both practitioners of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that drove him to create something pretty amazing to manage the behind the scenes, the gym. So stay tuned for that. We're also going to get deep into the MongoDB community. What's it like to be in the MongoDB community? So if you're a developer, you're leveraging a database, you want to get deeper into database management with MongoDB, learn a little bit about MongoDB, MongoDB Atlas, and the Champions program. Welcome, Ashir. Hail SQL. All right. Yes, we support SQL as well, Ashir. SQL is now fully supported in MongoDB Atlas with Atlas SQL. Welcome. It's great to have you here, sir. Saeed, welcome. If you're jumping into the stream, let us know where you're joining us from. I'm always curious about where people are in the world. I'm on the East Coast of the United States, just outside Philadelphia, one of the first cities in the United States. Hello from India. Good morning, Irma, Gabrielle. Great to have you joining the stream. You can also let us know what you're doing with MongoDB. That'd be awesome. If you've got some questions, we'll try and answer them. Yes, great. MongoDB certification. Absolutely. We have a great certification path on MongoDB University. It's all free. You can study for free. And there is a cost to do the certification test, but well worth it. So stay tuned. You can learn a little bit more about that. Awesome to see so many people jumping in. Como, I don't know where that is in the world. Jersey. Yeah. What's up, Thomas? Yeah. I spend a lot of time in Ocean City, New Jersey. I just got back from there actually yesterday. I spent some time at the beach. All right. So we've got a number of people joining us. It's awesome. Let's get to the heart of today's discussion. We're going to focus on the MongoDB community, and we're going to feature one of my favorite people in the MongoDB community, Sani Yusuf. Let's get him into the stream. Sani, welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. How are you doing, Michael?
Never better. Never better. Just keeps getting better every day. Sani, where in the world are you?
I am in London right now.
Okay.
London, yes, the east of London.
And that's where you live?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay. Awesome. So you didn't have a holiday yesterday. In the States, we celebrated Memorial Day.
Oh, we had one.
Yeah, it was nice.
We had a bank holiday over here, and we had also a holiday in my country, Nigeria, because the new president just got inaugurated. So, hat trick.
Yes. Awesome. That's terrific. Well, Sani, we've spoken a lot on Zoom calls, and we've done some things in the community together. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself. What do you do for a living? How do you pay the bills?
Well, so after dark, there's this place that we go. I'm just joking. No, so I'm Sani Yusuf. So day to day, I'm actually a software engineer. So I run a small company where I get to consult in mental health. So where we use a lot of MongoDB, and then I also build a lot of products that my company actually tries to sell and help the lives of people become more efficient. So that's pretty much it. I believe that's how the bills get paid. I think so. But yeah.
Well, it's good that you're paying them for sure. And you've done a lot of stuff in the MongoDB community. Can you talk a little bit about the community program and the Champions program at MongoDB?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The MongoDB community is very, very excellent because I initially, I'm one of the few people that kind of bet on the MongoDB cloud platform, which is Atlas. It depends on when you started using it, Atlas, Stitch, all the names that or Realm, all the names that have come through. And over time, I contributed a lot into that and asked questions, and then the opportunity came for us to actually make it more efficient, because there's a lot of people like yourself. Two brains are better than one, and the more you get people that are crazy enough to do the same things in one room, magic tends to happen. So that's kind of how we went ahead with the help of your colleagues, and we started the MongoDB London community. We have an event in 20 days. This is going to be our third one. And then there's also the MongoDB Champions and Enthusiasts program, which is just, I guess, if you know about the Google Developer Expert program or the Microsoft MVP program, this is our MongoDB's edition, of recognizing the efforts that people like myself and other people way smarter than me are doing for the community, and see how best they can be recognized, but also not just recognized, but help them do what they like to do better to grow the community.
Awesome. That's great. And I'm going to pop up a banner to give people more information. If you're curious about learning about the community program, the Champions program, and Enthusiast program. The Enthusiast is a new aspect to the program. So check out that link there. It's mongodb.com/community/forums/champions. You can get more information there. All right. And how long have you been hanging out and doing work in the community?
Yeah, so I've kind of on and off, I would say, since 2017, 18. I would say 18 probably, right? Because we needed to build a cloud platform around my company. And me being a serverless person, I always felt like the tools available were not quite. They were always like you needed to use a bunch of them, right? You needed to use this for your logs, and this for your database, and this for your real time, and this for authentication. And I've always felt like, how can we get that? So I think that's when I started using MongoDB Atlas. And so since then, I've kind of like been in the community, mostly over GitHub, sort of stuff, just helping friends and there. And then, eventually online and answering questions. And, here we are at your podcast.
Yeah, right. And I mean, so one of the things that I love about the community and running a MUG, like a MongoDB user group, that's how I started the MongoDB user group in Philadelphia prior to even working at MongoDB. And what a phenomenal way to learn. Everybody's trying all sorts of different ways to learn. There are many ways to learn. MongoDB University, as we mentioned, there's certification paths there. But learning in public, learning in a community, you try things, you visit the user groups, and you talk about what you're doing. You get feedback from other members who have done similar things, and it's just a phenomenal way to add to your learning experience for sure. And so you are in the mental health field as an advisor. I think that's right?
No, I'm a consultant. So I'm
consultant.
Basically I lead engineering and technology. So depends who you ask. It's a very unofficial title: CTO, head of engineering. I just write the code and make sure everything gets done. Yeah.
Just casually drops that he's a CEO, head of engineering. That's great. That's awesome. So why MongoDB? Why not some other database?
Oh no, it was very simple, right? So before MongoDB, I've like, as everybody, you have an SQL background, but I kind of moved away from SQL very quickly. Not because it wasn't great, but because serverlessness. For me, I've always I've been doing serverless since 2011. I call myself a serverless extremist. So I think I had joined the current team I'm with to lead that team, and they had chosen a IBM Cloudant, right? Which actually is a Mongo-like structured database, right? It uses the same JSON framework as Mongo, the same query system, but it's just that it has revisions, right? And it's offline first. So, but it didn't quite do what we needed to do. For one specific reason was that in healthcare, you tend to have laws that require you to host the database in the country physically that you use. So in our case, IBM Cloudant would not let us do that, and that means we were almost stuck in one location. If we needed to migrate, we had to choose a whole new database. And then you have things like Firebase that I used a lot, but they didn't even allow you to even pick your location,
Mm.
right? So I think with MongoDB, and at the time the Atlas platform was new. So first of all, you get to pick your own cluster, which means you can choose any location based off of Google, Amazon, and Microsoft Azure, right?
Yep.
So you can pick any location, which meant if time came where we needed to migrate our data, it was a click of a button, right? We didn't, and that's one. Two, you have MongoDB's query system that's very mature, allows you to scale beyond everything to change, respond to requirements. That's two. Three was serverless, right? So you didn't have to create your own infrastructure, just focus on writing code and just do all of that. And all the other 1,000 different things that we didn't even know we needed that were there. So it was a simple choice for me, and that's one of the reasons why we went fully 100% into MongoDB.
Yeah. It truly has become a rich platform. Atlas, it offers so much, and I think at last count there's something like 95 regions that are supported. So you can deploy your database, you can control where the data lives. Oh, there's just so much. I mean, triggers. There's the data lake. There's data federation. And then of course we didn't even talk about Realm. Are you doing anything in the mobile space?
Yes and no. So yes, we are, but we haven't been using like the Realm mobile SDKs themselves yet, right? We've been using more just the JavaScript SDK in the mobile space. Now we do have some plans because I think because a lot of what we do is really, we don't really require the offline stuff specifically to the same degree. But now we're having some plans to actually go in there and use like the actual Realm mobile stuff soon, where we're just just not there yet. Slow, stepping stones.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, there's a rich palette of tools to choose from. So tell me a little bit about your work with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how you started thinking about Beltstripe.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm the world's worst Gracie Jiu-Jitsu student, by the way,
No, that's me.
right?
That's me.
No, that has to be me, right? Guys, I've got the whole year and I haven't like won one sparring session. That's
But you're learning. Learning.
Yes. It's not been a great start to the year. Although I haven't sparred a lot, to be honest. So I've always been into martial arts. While I lived in Nigeria, so I was born and raised in Nigeria, right? And while I lived in Nigeria, I was a practitioner of South Korean Taekwondo, right? Big loved it. Got to vice president of my school. For this was in primary school, and became a blue belter. I was just about to be promoted to blue belt, and I had to go to secondary school, and then my school changed it to karate, which I wasn't really a fan of because of stuff. So I've always loved martial arts. Nothing to do with karate people. You're all good. Nothing to do. Then recently, the past like 5 years, I've always been a sporty person, but I guess from 2000 and I would say 14 to 2017, I had to build a career. And I think one of the things that suffered was like my physical activity levels were not as great. So I wasn't playing football to the same degree. And I was never really a gym goer. So at some point I was just like, I feel miserable. This is not me. I'm always active. So I said, okay, cool. What's the near? I want to learn a different type of martial arts because Taekwondo is very kick friendly, but I've never really done anything with grappling or hand or close combat, right? So I started looking. I was actually looking to either do Wing Chun or something else, and then I came across Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which happened to be very close to my house, and I was like, oh. So I signed up. I loved it, but over time we would go to start our classes, and they have these cards, the standard attendance card that every martial arts place has. So for those people that don't know, the attendance cards, your name, your rank, January to December, 1st to 31st. Every day you come, you mark an X, you leave it there. That's how they know who's come, when to promote you, all of that. So we would spend maybe 5 minutes if it was a big class of like 30, 40 people, and we're all looking for our cards because there's like thousands of them, and I'm like, this is so inefficient. And I'm like, okay, how many classes have I actually done? I keep paying for this, but what's how many hours have I spent training? How many classes? What's my progress like? And I realized I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So at some point I went on YouTube and I made a live stream. I said, hey, this is a problem I see, and I wanted to teach people MongoDB. And I said, hey, if I was solving this problem, this is how I would do. So I ended up building my startup in like an hour and a half, right? And a lot of people tuned in. They were learning how to. We actually built a working application with MongoDB Atlas. And at the time, it was also a trial because I wanted to record a MongoDB Atlas course. So that was kind of me testing the waters.
Yeah.
So this is all live. Then I eventually go to the academy and actually have a word with one of the trainers, right, the coaches. And they're like, okay, I'll get you a word with the owner. And then we started talking, and they were like, oh yeah, they're struggling as well. They have to do so much manual work. And I was like, oh really? I went back on YouTube, made the video unlisted, and that's really how Beltstripe started.
Wow, incredible! I love that. The birth of a company, the birth of a really solid tool. So if you're interested, you're listening or watching, you can check out Beltstripe at beltstripe.com. What phase of development are you in today? Are you live? Is it in production?
Yes, we are in production. So we've been on trial since 2020. Since December 2021 is when we went live. And we're still at just the one academy for now. We because we're a small team, we're self-funded. We decided not to take any venture capital or all of that because for me, the path to revenue is very clear. I understand the problem. The last thing I want is a bunch of investors saying, when are we going to make $1 million?
Controlling.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's very important. And also the last thing you want to do is scale to 20, 100 different customers. And now all of them have 100 problems and you don't have enough resources. So you have to be very careful. And also so that's kind of like where we are, where we're live. We've been remitting money, where we're doing pretty well. We got to the final stage of the Google Black Founders Fund recently. We didn't get the fund, but there's a lot of interest, so it's really, really, really going good.
That's great, and I love the controlled approach. You're kind of controlling your own destiny. You're not rushing things. That's awesome. And I was surprised when we first started talking about this. I was surprised that you haven't availed yourself of the MongoDB for Startups program. I really need to connect the dots. We'll connect you with the person who's running the MongoDB for Startups program, Julian Bush. We'll get you plugged in there. If you're watching along and you've got a great idea, solves a problem in the world, you might want to check out MongoDB for Startups. I've got the link in the banner here. You can check that out. We're going to get Sani hooked up with Julian and the startups team. So what are some of the major problems that you've come across as you started to build this?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot. I used to think I was this great developer, entrepreneur, and everything, but what I learned in the last years is I'm actually pretty crap at it, right? But then the day you humble yourself to know that you're not as great as you think is the day you actually truly grow. So one of the things I learned about is we have to do with finance, with money, right? I think that was the biggest thing. Like, you want people to be able to pay, sign up for a subscription and stuff like that. And honestly, when it comes to Atlas, what we were able to do with the webhooks, the HTTP endpoints as they call them now, that really has just saved us, like, good Lord, that has saved us tremendous amounts of time, because without those webhooks, we would absolutely be screwed. So I think that's really, really helped us a lot. That's the one thing. And I would say another thing is really, when you're building a startup, you need to be able to very agile and respond to change. And what the MongoDB platform, especially the database itself, it's literally designed to morph, in any way. So it's very easy for us to really, throw out a data model here and just, focus on our work. Our backups is friendly. I guess one last thing I would say that is really, really great for us is the MongoDB functions. Now, for people that don't know what the MongoDB functions are, they're very similar to how you'd consider, I guess, the Amazon Lambda functions, right? So they're functions that kind of run. But the thing with MongoDB functions is it's in the MongoDB space, and you just go in there. You can use a like for example, we use Stripe. So you can go in there and just use the Stripe node modules and just require it and do work. And all you've done is just write 5 lines of JavaScript.
I love it. Yeah.
And you have a function you can call from outside, from the inside you can secure. And so that's, really fantastic.
Game changer. Yeah. Yeah. I love those too. So you're talking about serverless functions. They live in MongoDB Atlas. They live in the cloud. You get an HTTPS endpoint to call that function. You have an intimate connection to your data. There's a populated context variable that gives you access to the data in MongoDB Atlas. And wow, I mean, it used to be called Stitch. I've done a couple of videos that I have to go back and update. They're on YouTube. But the one thing that's striking to me is the similarities in the journey in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and starting a company, founding a company, or even just basically developing. You mentioned the word agility, and I spent some time thinking about this, and you can check out the articles I wrote about the correlation between Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MongoDB software development. Check those out. Let me know what you think in the comments if you're watching along. There's one that I wrote about the correlation between Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, software development, and the fact that they both require persistence, agility, humility. You mentioned that too. Like starting a company certainly will humble you. There's a lot of sneaky challenges that are going to crop up. So how big is Beltstripe? How many people are working on Beltstripe today?
So we've just hired a new developer. So there's a total of, including myself, there's 4 of us now, right? So you have me, I lead all things engineering, and I'm trying to sell it to people at the same time. Just, I'm kind of everywhere, And then you have my sister actually, who recently joined as well. She's very great at managing. She has a lot of experience in, knowledge management and copy, and so she just makes sure that we get stuff done and we hit targets. And she's also great at envisioning things that we didn't even think about, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Omar, who is our product designer in house. So he gets a lot of annoying emails from me saying, no, move this button here. No, this cannot be here. This is not what they would want. And now we had a new person just joined that is helping with the development, because we're trying to get things out faster. So we just freed out some funds to get that. So that's it. That's just all 4 of us now. Yeah.
That's great. Well, great. From humble beginnings, I hope things really take off for you. So when you started to think about the data model, how did you land on a schema for MongoDB?
Oof. Okay, I'm gonna be very honest. Not all of our collections are enforced with schemas, right? I'll just be honest here.
Yeah.
A lot of them we just rely on the security, and it's it's not look, best practice is you create a schema. However, think about it. Without a schema, you couldn't even do nothing in SQL for the most part. But with MongoDB, you can rely on the collection security, right? You can already stop people from doing anything malicious, that even if you had a schema or not, doesn't matter. And here's the thing now that I realized, that because we just recently created a new feature, we're creating a new feature, and I actually created the schema from the ground up. When I went to the other collections, you can actually just generate the schemas based off of the data that you've been pushing. So the MongoDB would go in there, look at all your data. You can tell it, look at 5,000 objects, and you generate the schemas based off of that for you. And it's so great. And so creating a schema, we tend to just use from the TypeScript side, because we use TypeScript on the front end. So we have what we call interfaces, right? And they're basically like schemas, but on the front end. So technically, if you enforce that in the JavaScript, it's very hard for an object to be pushed where it doesn't conform to the schema. But now we're really, obviously, the more we become a serious company, right? We're enforcing good practices and schemas. I'm thinking of doing something, right? And I've had this idea. It's an open source idea that I might plug, but it's I want to create GUI, a user interface tool for creating schemas. So somebody can just say this property, these are the limitations, and all of that, and it will just generate the JSON schema for the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not the easiest, but it's also very easy. Like, if you just read the documentation and you know what you're doing, it's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I love that you have the choice. With MongoDB, you're not forced into making a decision about how to separate your data. And you do have the choice to create JSON schema to enforce the data model. But you mentioned a tool. There's a great tool. We're in talks now. We're going to go live in early June with our friends from Hackalade. Hackalade is an amazing tool that gives you the ability to create schema for your MongoDB database. And some people may say, wait a minute, like MongoDB is schema-less. Why would you need that? We're going to discover more about that with the folks from Hackalade. They've got an amazing solution in that space. So maybe that's something you want to take a look at. I do want to take a minute and let folks know that we're coming to New York City. It's not so far from me, but if you're in the New York City area and you want to hang out with some community members, you want to check out the keynotes where we're talking about all of the latest updates, the products going live, GA. There's a number of really exciting GA announcements. You can come to the New York City Javits Center, and we've got a special offer. Podcast 50 is the code. It's 50%, the early bird, 50% off. I think that might be ending soon, so check that out. Podcast 50 will get you 50% off the already discounted price. I will be there, and we'll be doing live streams from the conference. I'd love to chat with other community members. The podcast booth will be right inside the door of the conference. Swing by. Let me know who you are and what you're doing with MongoDB. Would love to actually talk to you live. We'll also have some folks in the conference doing live interviews, walking around. So I understand you won't be here for New York City .local, but you will be in London for .local New York City .local London, which is going to happen September 26th. So looking forward to seeing you there. So Sani, what else is going on? What else do people need to know?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, like, in terms of, like, we can go a different direction. We can go from the Beltstripe side, for example, where we're really working. We're looking for feedback for people in the martial arts space. So we'd love to hear people that find what we're building very, very interesting. But also, I think really we're looking for ways where a lot of the ways that we've used this particular tool can benefit the community, because we've learned a lot, integrating, real time, integrating, with payments, integrating with pretty much, I think the only thing we're not using is just the GraphQL side of things, all right? But like really showcasing that. But also, I think one of the things that in the healthcare side as well, which is where I've actually used MongoDB even more, right? We've launched a lot of clinical trials. So one of the largest clinical trial in mental health in the recent times on the world. More than 1,000 people were able to recruit. It's live now. It's called a StratCare trial, and that's all backed on and built on MongoDB, right? So these are some of the things that I think I want to do a better job in, really, interacting with people like yourself and people elsewhere, because there might be a client someday that is thinking about using MongoDB for a medical clinical trial and they're not quite sure. But if I think we do a better job in showcasing some of the things that we've done, I've worked on, that helps the company, that helps people in the community, gives them more confidence that, hey, this has been done, this has been proven, this tool has worked, and it's backed, arguably the largest mental health clinical trial in the last 5 years, and things like that with what we're doing with AI. I do have a few things I would love to see MongoDB add in Atlas as well, but
do tell.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I would love to know is if they could add like document storage. When I say document storage, I mean like pictures and audios.
Oh yeah.
I know you can do that in like FTP via the hosting, but like I want a day where I want to develop some images. So like right now, what we do is we use Firebase for storage. But I want it to be a place where I want to be able to upload a picture, a video.
No grid FS? Have you ever used GridFS?
I've heard of it ish, but it's like
yeah. So it does permit you to use MongoDB as a backend for larger than 16 megabyte files, and it's a driver implementation that chunks, that breaks up your large documents. I think it's, for me, I've used it a couple of times, and implementing it at the driver layer is there's kind of a toss up between leveraging S3 object store for those larger items and then storing the metadata in MongoDB, or leveraging GridFS. Not sure how many people are still actively using GridFS, but it is a solution. There's a question from Josef Forkman. Do you use Mongoose for Beltstripe?
Oh no, we directly communicated with the MongoDB Realm SDK on the front end. So no need for Mongoose. We'd only need Mongoose if you're communicating with some form of what's it called?
Like an
Node.js.
ODM.
Yeah, exactly, an
Yeah.
ODM. And even then, with Node.js, you wouldn't need Mongoose because you could still just use the SDK directly. So
yeah. And Mongoose actually does implement the client, the Node.js MongoDB client. So talk a little bit about the rest of the stack. What does Beltstripe look like from an architecture perspective?
So front end is mostly built on Angular. I love Angular. Big fan of Angular. We use two sets of tools. So we use Kendo UI for Angular.
Kendo.
Yeah, so that's built by Progress, formerly called Telerik.
Okay.
Yeah. So some people still call them Telerik. Some people still do them, but I guess now I call them Progress. So Kendo UI is like their own sort of like a UI building kit, and that's what we use to build the MongoDB admin tool.
Okay. Cool.
The student registry, which is the app in the that you use to sign in at the academies, and the instructor applications, they're all built on Ionic for Angular.
Oh, so you get cross-platform from that as well, right?
Absolutely. So they're all web-based now, but like going mobile is just a pick of us. So we already have web and mobile, iOS and Android app. So we're always building
smart.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. While the admin, we don't need all of that. So we just use Kendo UI, and we need like more specialized components. So that's what that looks like. Then everything's pretty much MongoDB Atlas. Like we don't use any external. Like I said, I would wish it was much easier to work with objects, like without the GridFS. Like it was just a direct. Yeah. And I could just fling an image. And MongoDB just give me a URL, just like the way Firebase does. But I think we're gonna stick to Firebase. We also use Firebase for hosting, in terms of like the URL. Now we thought about doing the MongoDB, but I guess Firebase is just easier. It's much easier for now and gives us a little bit more leverage and stuff. I think MongoDB hosting will probably get there in the future and would be sure to move, but that's kind of like what our like the base level of our stack is built on. Yes.
All right. So user interface for coding. What's your preference? Do you code from command line? Do you use VS Code?
No, I'm a WebStorm guy only.
WebStorm, okay.
I'm a WebStorm guy. I think it is illegal for me to write a code. I think if I write code in production on any other tool, the police would come and arrest me, because I've probably gone to the police and like told them that if I ever do that, they should come and arrest me. So I really do like WebStorm. I think WebStorm is just amazing, and maybe because I don't have to pay for it as well. So there is that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do get it for free, so yeah.
Oh, VS Code is free, no?
It's just VS Code is amazing. I just think you'd have to. There's a lot that just comes baked into WebStorm that you'd have to like configure for VS Code, which you can do. But I think, I'm just very comfortable with WebStorm from my Android Studio days. So it's I really like it.
Yeah. Have you done much Android development?
Yes, in the past. So I worked a lot with the Ionic community. I run, so as I run the MongoDB London community, I also actually run the Ionic UK community.
Oh, cool.
Yes, and in fact, all three of my books that I've written have been on Ionic. So
Wait a minute. You've written 3 books.
Unfortunately, yes.
Tell us about the books.
So I wrote a book called Ionic Framework by Example, which came out in 2016. And then there's 2 other books that kind of like take parts of my first book and merge with some other writers. And second, I don't know the name of my other books. One is called a Hybrid Mobile App Development. The second one is Mobile Application Development JavaScript Frameworks. Yes. So
you have been busy, sir.
yeah, this was a long time ago. It's nearly 10 years now. So I'm still very active in the Ionic community, and that's why, like how I've kind of lost the reason why I brought Ionic up. If you could please remind me.
I was asking you about your books. Oh, and I asked you about cross-platform development as well.
Oh, yes, the cross-platform. Yeah, so it made sense. We've an Android development, so I did a lot of Android while I worked with Ionic in the past. So apps that I've worked on include, I don't know if you've heard of SwareKit.
No, I haven't.
So it's actually, so I've always been in healthcare. It's a circuit training fitness applications, one of the top in the App Store. You basically put your phone down and it tells you to do exercises, gives you, and you can follow the instructions and do it. Very great app. So I worked with that, and before that, I also built a mobile platform for a company called Perkbox. So they're like an employee benefits perks platform, and so that was my mobile days, my Android days.
Awesome. Well, we're fortunate to have you in the community. I really appreciate you spending some time with us. Is there anything? I've got your book link up there, Ionic Framework by Example. You guys can check that out. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we begin to wrap up?
I mean, like I said, if you're thinking about using MongoDB, for sure, like give it a try. The documentation is, I think people will be so shocked how great MongoDB is, and I think the most hesitating thing is like, well, why isn't this as popular as it should be? Like, Atlas is like, that was my hesitation. It's like, this does everything I need. How come I haven't heard about this as much as I should have, right? I think that's the thing. But if you're there, you were like me 5, 6, 7 years ago, the documentation is ready. It is very rare for something to go wrong while you're using MongoDB, especially MongoDB Atlas. It's just it's a database that has been very well documented. But there's nothing you're searching for that like someone else hasn't searched for, and everything. They've thought about everything. So I think, again, they're not paying me for this. I'm just telling you based on my own experience, right? And definitely you don't have to go spin up your own thing. You can just go on Atlas, and like big companies now just go on Atlas and do a lot of great stuff. And so I think get in touch with the community and really get hacking. If you need to get in contact with me as well, my LinkedIn's here, my Twitter is here. Just shoot me up in any of those channels.
Yeah, absolutely. Terrific. Well, I want to thank you once again for spending time with us. It was great learning more about Beltstripe and your background. Would strongly encourage folks, if you're interested, jump into the community. There's so much in the MongoDB community. You'll have the opportunity to hang out, network with other like-minded software developers, learn a little bit more about how they're solving problems. Sani, thank you so much.
Pleasure is all mine, Michael. I really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for everyone that came today.
Yep. All right. Would encourage folks watching, listening, check out the MongoDB podcast. You can find more at mongodb.com/podcast. You can find me on Twitter at mlin. I post all of the episodes from the podcast on my Twitter, as well as LinkedIn. Feel free to jump in. You can ask questions. We've got some really exciting things happening in June. We're going to be going live with a new streaming platform. It's all going to be YouTube based, but we'll be airing a lot more programming coming up in June, and that's all going to launch June 22nd at mongodb.local.nyc. I'll put the banner up, shamelessly plug one more time. MongoDB.local New York City. Use the code podcast50 for 50% off of the already discounted early bird price. Thanks once again. Enjoy the rest of your day, Sani. See you in the
Thank you
community.
very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.